Dr. Jeffrey Halstead has been Canandaigua's hometown dentist for more than 35 years, offering routine dental care as well as cosmetic dentistry, implants, and dentures by their highly trained and experienced staff. Visit them online at canandaiguadentistry.com or find them on Facebook and Instagram.
Welcome in, everybody, to Concrete Jungle, a New York baseball podcast here on FingerLakes1.com. Paul Russo and Kyle Evans back in the studio this week. Kyle, good to see you. It's been a pretty good week again for the Yankees, for the Mets. Not as great. Been some moments of flashes of good, but sub 500 baseball over in Queens for the Mets. The S-Mets and the Red Wings squared off last week. Had some pretty good baseball play between the two, and they both find themselves kind of, at least in contention still here early on in the International League. So, for the most part, can't really complain about the baseball being played.
Yeah, I think every team is at least 500, including the minor league teams. So, I'm not sure that's happened that much since we've done this podcast. So, I guess, yeah, it's going pretty well, and things could be worse for sure.
Yeah, it's been one of those things where, and we'll jump into a couple different things, obviously, but all things considered, could definitely be worse right now. Here's looking at you, Chicago. Before we get any further, quick thanks to our sponsors, obviously, Dr. Jeffrey Halstead there at the jump, but also Finger Lakes Partners Insurance. Get the insurance you need from the people you know. Finger Lakes Partners Insurance, the Finger Lakes Insurance Agency for your home, auto, or business. Get no obligation quote today at fingerlakesinsurance.com. And Lil John and Barbie Orthodontics. Dr. Lil John, Dr. Barbie, and their outstanding orthodontic team share a common goal to ensure the overall wellness of each of their patients through their exceptional orthodontic care. You can check out Dr. Rod and Dr. Liz online at liljahnortho.com. Let's begin this week with the Yankees. Kyle, it's been, like I mentioned, been a pretty positive week for them. Sweep Detroit, and then have a at least guaranteed win of the series against Houston. That game, Game 3, in a few hours here at this point, for a would-be sweep potentially for the Yankees. So everything in the grand scheme of it, right, when you look at it from just having to do what they have to do from the team element of it, has been pretty successful here the past, like I said, 7 days.
Yeah, the last time we talked, they were going to try to split the series with the Orioles. Obviously, that didn't happen. But since then, all they've done is win. The offense has definitely heated up since that series. They're hitting more home runs, and the main guy that, we've talked about a ton is finally hitting, and that's Aaron Judge. We've seen him go deep 4 times in the last 11 games. So I think he's back, and I think people can finally stop bringing that up as a topic.
Yeah.
I was never worried because, his resume says it speaks for itself. So, it's good to see. It's fun to watch, and this would be their 10th straight win against the Astros as well if they win today because they swept them last year in their building.
Yeah, it's weird because, I did want to kind of approach this a little bit today, but I didn't think the Astros were going to be this bad, but I thought they were definitely going to be down this year, and wow, how the mighty have fallen. Either way, yeah, you mentioned Judge. Really the one guy for me, even though, and we'll get to this maybe more in a second, Rizzo's kind of continued a pretty good hot streak as well at the moment. It is interesting, though, after we talked 2 weeks ago, I've seen a couple different times on the Yankees subreddit, people approach the idea of, what if we swap Judge and Soto around in the order after we kind of talked about the hypothetical of it? And I think it was even after Judge made the comments, I guess it'd really be approaching 10 days ago now, when he talked about how he doesn't think anywhere in the lineup for him would be working out all that well just because he's not seen pitches at the moment. And it's great how things can change in a matter of a handful of games. And even then, like, he was able to get himself above the Mendoza line a couple weeks ago now, and since then it's really been up and up, and I guess not really surprising to that end that he's got it figured out, and we're at the point now where there is no worry, at least at the moment, in regards to his hitting.
Yeah, and he was obviously has been their best player, and we've seen him carry the team the last couple of years. But now it's Soto, still doing what he's doing, which is unbelievable. The guy just hits every game, it seems. Coupled in with Rizzo, like you mentioned, this is why this team is starting to heat up offensively. The whole lineup's not going to hit well at the same time. There's going to be some guys that are cold and some guys that are hot. That's just baseball. But in Baltimore, it just seemed like nobody was hitting. So it's just good to see at least a few guys kind of contribute every night. Stanton, has had some days off here and there, but for the most part, he's been better than he was in the first couple weeks. Hit an unbelievable home run last night, just destroyed it. It's amazing how he can hit the ball out like that. But yeah, it's just if they get a little more offense, their pitching has been unreal. They have the second best team ERA in baseball. Just give them, I think they're like 21-4 when they score 3 or more runs. So you just give them 3-4 runs, and that pitching staff is going to give you a win every night.
Yeah, before I want to get to a couple of those guys on the offensive side of it struggling, I did want to go to the pitching because it really has been, in the past 7 days, a really true team effort, as I would call it. Everybody's kind of, for the most part, everybody's clicking right now and going in a way that, it does really make you feel good. You mentioned the ERA element of it. I don't know if I want to fully say this out loud, but I'm not going to say the full part, but just go check out Clay Holmes' stuff right now. And that's a name we haven't said a ton this year as compared to, say, maybe this time last year, and for good reason. At the moment, there is very little to worry about with Clay Holmes. He appears to be the guy that the Yankees got at the deadline now almost 2 full seasons ago. So that's really good. Admittedly, the guy I was probably most concerned about, Caleb Ferguson's looked really good as well here the past couple appearances that he's had. I think Ferguson and Holmes are tied for appearances out of the bullpen. I could be wrong, but I thought they're both at 16 last time I checked this morning. So it's really good stuff, and it's hard to kind of really find, I'd say, a soft spot on the Yankees right now in terms of pitching as well. I mean, sure, there have been a couple spots here and there with some guys. We've talked about it, right? But, even have Dennis Santana out there kind of being the spot guy for Clay Holmes when they can't go back-to-back on Holmes. It's been a pretty good thing to see given the past really year for the Yankees, where it's like you kind of have to meddle through some stuff, and I'll save the rest of the bullpen stuff here for in a minute because that involves guys on the IL, but it's a good problem to have when you have to make decisions about who will be sent down, presumably who will be designated for assignment in this scenario for the Yankees.
Yeah, Clay Holmes has been unreal. I think what's helped him so much this year is the slider is, I think, the best it's ever been. He kind of goes to that more now than he does the sinker. He still throws a sinker a good amount of times, but his last outing, that slider was just unhittable. And yeah, as for the bullpen, everyone's doing their part. Until Victor Gonzalez gave up that home run to Jeremy Pena, they had 27 scoreless innings from the bullpen. 27 straight scoreless innings. Some bullpens can't even make it out of a game without giving up a run. And we know how bad some of those bullpens are. So it's just impressive. And a lot of these names we kind of talked about before the season, they're not like well-known names or like star relievers. They're just guys that are, kind of chip in and do their own role and just give the team, a quality inning. And that's all it's about. And they're not a huge strikeout bullpen either. If I don't know if you've looked at the numbers compared to past years, they allow a lot of contact, but they do the job. Yeah. So that's all that matters. So great to see.
Yeah. Let's get to a couple of those guys kind of struggling here, and it's interesting because when we talked a couple weeks ago about the catching situation, I wouldn't say stuff's completely 180'd, But since then, we've seen Jose Trevino kind of step up a little bit more at the plate. His average is now up, I think, to 281, I think I saw, or something like that. But Austin Wells continues to struggle a little bit here in the sophomore season, as does Gleyber Torres. And it's kind of one of those spots for the Yankees here where the Wells one, to me, is a little bit simpler, only because it's apparent that him and Trevino are more or less platooning the position, depending upon matchup and depending upon battery situation of sort. The Gleyber one's a little bit of a tougher solve because I'll be really intrigued to hear your thoughts on this. I don't know if I could take him out of the everyday lineup, but we are admittedly inching closer to a DJ LeMahieu return. And I don't know where he fully fits in this puzzle, but, Oswald Peraza also nearing some sort of a return. I don't know what the situation's going to be with Gleyber, admittedly, here in a couple weeks when the reinforcements kind of get in here. And like I said, I personally speaking, I don't think I can take him out of the everyday lineup, but I think it's entirely possible that especially if DJ LeMahieu comes back and puts together a couple really good games in a row, I don't know. I think I know which way you're going here, but the one guy I didn't put in my notes about the struggles, and it's only because the Gleyber one's more glaring to me out of the everyday position guys. Oswaldo Cabrera's not really lighting the world on fire, but he's not really in a rough spot either right now. He's kind of middling. I think it's 243 average or something like that. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's Oswaldo being the odd man out, and they just kind of keep going with Gleyber in hopes that he kind of gets it going. But I suppose if there was one really spot here where I'm kind of wondering what the position is going to be in a couple weeks, it's the Gleyber spot.
Yeah, Gleyber is the hitter that I worry the most about because it's a contract year. We're 38 games in. He's actually, let me check here. He's actually the only Yankee position player to appear in check that, Judges have also appeared in every game this season. So Gleyber has been in the lineup every game, regardless of his struggles, and he still has just one home run and 7 RBIs. I mean, Jose Trevino, who platoons with Wells, has 11 RBIs. And Gleyber hits in a way better spot in the lineup as well. He's just not producing as he usually does. I don't expect him to go crazy and have a 90 to 100 RBI season, but at least give you in that 60, 70 range like he's capable of. And he's far from that pace. And his at-bats sometimes, he's either jumping on the first pitch or he's missing pitches later in the at-bat. And then he's getting behind in the count, and the strikeouts are a problem too sometimes with him. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know how much longer we can go because of the guys that are coming back. Maybe they do give him a few games off. We've seen that with struggling hitters in the past. But they got to do something if he doesn't start hitting here in the next week or so. And because he's really, I guess he walks sometimes, but just basically an out. I mean, he's not doing anything.
Yeah, I mean, he is essentially the one spot where teams can quote unquote escape right now. In theory, I mean, there are other spots too. I mean, like I mentioned, Oswaldo's spot, I guess you could probably consider that too. But of the everyday guys, I mean, I'd say he's the one guy you can kind of go after and get away with it as it stands right now.
And one quick thing on Austin Wells. He's finally at 200. He had a couple hits in the last week or so, but I think I've kind of mentioned him before. I do think playing time's an issue, but I also think he's gotten unlucky. He's hitting a lot of balls hard. Expecting batting average is pretty good. I think he's hit 4 balls to the wall that have been caught, a few in Toronto. So I think he'll eventually come around. I think, him being young, he's just not used to this, getting time off like this. And with the off days mixed in too, it's not good for him, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, this is an issue that I don't think we're doing the podcast. Yeah, we definitely weren't doing the podcast yet, I don't think. But, yeah, I mean, this goes back to kind of a couple of the years with Gary Sanchez back in the day where it's I don't expect how you can see a guy improve if you don't really kind of give him the opportunity. And I get that it's tough right now. I mean, Trevino's kind of come around here, obviously. And obviously catching is a defensive plus position, as I would call it. And, Trevino is one of, if not the best in the game behind the plate in terms of calling a game and defense. I mean, he's got the awards to show it. I don't know. Maybe do mix in a couple games at DH for Austin Wells and hope or something. I mean, I'm not a big fan of usually having both catchers in the lineup just in case something stupid happens, but something, right? I mean, if there is also a saving grace in this, if you're Austin Wells, there's nobody really immediately threatening to take your spot. I think Double A is really where the next catching prospect kind of is right now, and they just aren't ready to go. I don't think there's really anybody at Triple A. I mean, I know Navarez was just kind of up as an extra bench guy there for a couple days while Verdugo was out on the paternity list, but I mean, outside of that, I'd say Wells is fairly safe right now from having to go back and figure some things out in that sense. So I don't know, but I'm with you. I think you gotta give him some extra at bats somewhere at this point. I get it. It's tough. I mean, it's easy for us to armchair quarterback this deal, right? But you aren't going to be able to figure it out if you aren't seeing enough pitches anyway. That's all that comes down to.
Yeah, and the thing is, I thought it was kind of interesting that he didn't start against Verlander in the opener, but now all of a sudden he's playing back-to-back. He's in the lineup again today, but then watch tomorrow in Tampa against a righty, Taj Bradley. Mm-hmm. Is he just going to go back to the bench all of a sudden?
Does Stroman prefer throwing to Austin Wells?
I don't know. I think they've mixed in a few times. Okay. I don't know. Boone has been asked about that before in Talking Yanks, and he says, "Oh, we don't have personal catchers," but sometimes I feel like they do. I know.
Yeah, that's the biggest. I mean,
obviously Garrett Cole, but
I was about to say when he first got brought in, Trevino was Colt's guy, specifically, if I recall right.
Yeah, and he said he's confident with anyone, working with anyone, but it just seems like sometimes when Stroman's on the mound, it's always Wells, or when I'm drawing a blank. Like when Schmidt's on the mound, it seems like it's always Trevino.
Right.
I don't know. It's just I don't know. Obviously, they go by the numbers and analytics and stuff, but I just didn't make sense to me that he was not in the lineup against Verlander.
Right.
And Trevino was, other than Trevino being hot at the plate.
Yeah, I don't know. And then speaking of hot, we I kind of glossed over these guys, but obviously still early yet, and I know Stroman's going today as well, but him and Rodon, if there's any question about them for this year, I think it's kind of been squashed so far. Safe bet anyway. As has, again, we got worried about him at the end of last year, obviously with the injuries and spring training, but Nestor's done really well as well here the past couple weeks, getting stuff figured out and getting himself in a groove too. So.
Yeah, Carlos Rodon has obviously not been my favorite, but it's good to see him doing well. And, he had a rough outing in Baltimore. Home runs are an issue lately for him. But last night, he kind of settled in, and he's been one of the best on the pitching staff. So if he continues to keep it up, I'll start liking him a little more here.
Come back around, Kyle. Come back around. Let's talk about some updates to some guys here. We got right off the bat, Tommy Kahnle, but also in a little bit of addition here, Oswald Peraza. Both have started rehab assignments with Single A Tampa. Peraza, I think, got a couple days jump on Kahnle, but either way, they're both with the Tarpons right now. Kahnle's the one that I'm really obviously most excited about. Probably you are as well, Kyle. It's been one of the main talking points on here when we get to this portion of the podcast. Involving the Yankees, so good to see that those guys are getting moving here and in the right direction. Nick Birdie, rehab assignment transferred from Double-A Somerset to Triple-A Scranton Wilkes-Barre, so he's really getting along here pretty good.
He'll be back tomorrow.
Yeah, I was kind of figuring the way that this was. I was going to say the way we talk about now with rehab assignments and stuff. Yeah, that kind of was the sense to me anyway. Was that if not tomorrow, like Saturday type thing? So
yeah, so he only needed one because the when he was in Double-A, it got rained out and he just never pitched.
Right, yeah.
And then I went to Triple-A and he only needed one inning and he struck out 3 and they said, "All right, we're activating you tomorrow."
Yep.
So welcome back, Nick Birdie.
How about it? DJ LeMahieu his resumed baseball activities. Will be traveling with the team to Tampa Bay. Kind of makes me wonder, after the weekend, if he will be remaining in Tampa once the Yankees fly to Minnesota. That'd be a safe-ish bet, I almost feel like, in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for the next setback with him.
Ah, jeez.
Hate to say it.
You're brutal with that one. All right, a couple other really good ones here, I will call it. Garrett Cole threw off a mound last week and then had another bullpen session yesterday. I think the throwing off the mound was, 15 fastballs, if I remember seeing that correctly. So good stuff there. And then this one, though, is the one I'm most excited about, Kyle. Jason Dominguez, our first update on him in a little bit. Per Aaron Boone, within 2 weeks of getting some rehab games in for Dominguez. So makes you smile, makes you pretty excited that Dominguez is beginning that process.
Yeah, Verdugo, Dominguez, and oh, Jesus, I forgot.
Stanton?
Someone will have to DH. Now I'll take Stanton out of the lineup.
Oh, wow.
Verdugo left, Judge center,
Well,
Soto right.
I was about to say Dominguez would have
Dominguez.
to be DH.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's going to be one heck of a lineup.
Mm-hmm.
Mixed in with Rizzo if he's still hitting, and
Yeah.
if Glaber freaking hits it at some point.
Yeah, Glaber doesn't have to worry about him in that sense because at least he's an outfielder, but yeah. And then speaking of outfielders, Taylor Trammell outright to AAA Scranton Wilkes-Barre was DFA'd a few days ago and accepts that assignment. So I think Trammell, he was 1-for-1 with the Yankees in his at-bats there. So
And he scored the game-winning run on, I think it was Rizzo's walk-off, wasn't it? Because he came in as a pinch runner.
Yep. Yeah. So how about it? Former Padre, Mariner,
He's been
Red
everywhere.
Prospect, something like that. Either way. So the Yankees, as we mentioned, after today, hitting the road for 3 games in Tampa Bay against the Rays. They'll be seeing, I believe, as you mentioned, Bradley tomorrow. I think Zach Littell's in there, and then
TBD.
I think TBD on Sunday, right?
Yep.
So, and I know the Yankees are TBD, but if we go by the way the rotation sets, I believe
They released it.
Oh, of course they just did.
Schmidt, Cortez, heel.
All right, yeah, as I expected. So, and then as I mentioned, off day on Monday, travel day, and then off to Minnesota for 3 games against a weirdly surging Twins team. Don't know really what to make of them, but obviously, as much as the Rays aren't what they have been the past couple of years, can't really take them lightly. Can't obviously take the Twins lightly. So I'll say again what I said last week, even though it's been proved to be a bit over or a bit under what the team has done. I think getting just a couple series wins against those teams would be good enough for the Yankees to remain, at least on paper, on pace with the Orioles here. I know they're both tied atop the AL East right now. So.
Yeah, I think they'll take 2 out of 3 in Tampa, kind of like they already did at the stadium. And then Minnesota, yeah, they're playing real well. They're already up 6-1 today against the Mariners. I don't know though, because the Yankees have a lot of success against the Twins. You know what? Give me a sweep.
Okay. The Yankees just haven't faced them with the rally sausage yet, so that's why I don't know how to properly gauge it.
So 5 of 6 in that stretch.
Yeah. I would gladly take that as well, obviously. Let's transition over to the Mets. As I mentioned, hasn't been as glamorous. They get swept by Tampa Bay over the weekend and then get a shortened de facto sweep of sorts with yesterday's game getting rained out in St. Louis. They get 2 of the 2 played against the Cardinals. Hasn't been as great as I mentioned for the Mets. It's interesting because it's the issue that I don't think me and you necessarily have said out loud when we talk about this, but it's very implied, right? Is one side of the team can't carry the other side for forever. And I think a little bit has crept in maybe for the Mets. What I mean by that is I think the pitching finally might be getting caught up on a little bit to a degree, with the bats kind of still very hot and cold, to put it mildly. I just want to put this as an example, and I thought it was a really great bright spot. Christian Scott gets called up from Syracuse, who has just been on fire to start the year at AAA. On fire. And gets the start last Saturday against the Rays, and 1-run ball for him through 5 innings gets downgraded, and he unfortunately, I think he got credit for the loss too, even Saturday.
Ottavino.
Oh, was it Ottavino?
Yeah.
Okay, so, but a stellar first career start for him gets overshadowed by that, and I think it also ended up being Cash's 755th career win, which is the most in franchise history for Tampa. It's a tough pill to swallow, I think, right now if you're the Mets, where you do, all things considered, have one of the better pitching staffs right now in baseball, but they can't plug all the holes in the sinking ship of the season right now, in that sense.
Yeah, and they were gonna salvage the final game in that series finale against the Rays. Are 1 strike away, and then Edwin Diaz gives up a home run to Randy Arozarena. They take the lead in the 10th inning, and just to give it right back and lose on a walk-off hit. I mean, it's just been tough for them because, yeah, the pitching has been so great, but then you look at some of these numbers lately, like they have a 10-8 loss. I mean, 8 runs should be enough to win a game.
Right.
And they have a 7-6 loss. Like I said, the walk-off loss, that should be enough to win a game. I don't know. It's like, it kind of reminds me of the Yankees last year. Early on in the season, you didn't know was the offense going to be there that night, or was the pitching going to be there that night? And if that was there, the other wasn't.
Right.
Kind of seems like that's been the story over the last week or two for them.
Right, but that's what I mean by, like, I think some of the it's just coming back to the mean right now, where it's just like, you can't expect some of these guys who, aren't number ones to be still doing what they're doing. It's not a knock. Like, I don't want to make it sound like whatever here, right? But, like, I don't think going into this year the Mets really expected Jose Quintana to be their de facto ace, right? And he hasn't been so far. That's been Luis Severino, who, unfortunately, as we know all too well, was in theory a bit of a project of sort this year contract for the Mets. And he's turned out to be their ace for the most part. He's kind of grabbed that torch. It's just one of those things. And even then, like, Sean Manaea has looked really good too now. But there's only so much they can do with what they got. I think with that in mind, transition over here with the Mets on offense, and I don't know what to kind of really jump off at this point. When we talked last week, Starling Marte was their average leader at almost 290, and now he's on to 269. It's inexcusable, I'd say, at this point. And it's not a knock on Marte. I think if you look at what Marte did last year to this year, I think that would be a really good average for him still. But it's just the other guys around him have just not stepped up.
Pete Alonso being one, other than the other night. He was like 3
also
for 40.
Also in a contract year.
Yeah. That's why what Aaron Judge did was just it's almost unheard of, because we see all these guys in contract years, Alex Bregman being another.
Yeah.
They don't perform, and here this guy goes out and just home run after home run in this contract year. So Aaron Judge is just on another level. That's unbelievable.
Yeah. But it's interesting here because I'm going to give you a couple of names here, Kyle. And it's interesting because we did kind of smack talk one of them here in a previous podcast. But the numbers for them simply have not, they don't lie in this sense. And I don't know where you exactly do this, but, Harrison Bader and Tyrone Taylor are a couple guys who don't play necessarily every day, but when they get in there, they're kind of getting some production in. Bader's batting 280, Taylor's batting 288. I know this goes back to kind of something we were mentioning a little bit with the Yankees stuff here with Clay Holmes, but because they don't meet the minimums, like, they aren't technically the team leaders in average. Look, for what he's done, he's been a pretty good piece, and I would keep him on the bench, but, DJ Stewart, the primary, quasi-primary DH right now, with JD Martinez is below the Mendoza line. And, you know, we've talked about a lot of other guys struggling with that number this year. You know, Brandon Nimmo, Lindor, and, you know, Lindor's really the one who's kind of turning around the most at the moment. And this kind of goes back to the Yankee thing in a little ways here is I don't know where those two you can kind of get them more at bats, but if you're Carlos Mendoza, I think you almost kind of have to figure out a way to get them in a little bit more right now, or until maybe those numbers aren't sustainable, and then you just have to stick with what you got. But I look at those two averages, for example, I would try and figure out a way to get them into the lineup some way, somehow.
And there was a article the other day in the New York Post that Harrison Bader, I guess, was interviewed by somebody from the Post, and he's like not happy with his lack of playing time. Like he literally, there was like quotes and stuff that came out about it, and like he understands that they're gonna roll the hot guys, but look at his numbers. He's played well. He deserves an opportunity. And what did they give him 1 year? What was it? Is it $8 million?
Something like that.
Yeah, so they're
it's definitely easily unloadable.
Yeah, so they're paying him like $8 million, and he's riding the bench lately. I think he only started, they said, like 4 out of like 9 games recently or something. Yeah. So, I mean, come on, that guy's got to be in the lineup, and he's a great defender too. Yeah. So,
yeah, I mean, and that's the thing, right? Like, I get it. He's probably not the player he once was either, but like, I mean, I'd be damned if I was batting 280 and I see guys around me batting 220s and 200s and not even 200s in every day. I'd be like, what the hell? Like, yeah. It's hard to maybe blame him for being a little bit peeved in that sense. It's unfortunate too because like I still think, and the Mets still, they're in third in the NL East still, and they're. I still view them as like at least some kind of postseason contender here to get to the postseason, but like you can't live by this all year. You just won't be able to sustain it. I mean, and if you do, more power to you. But they have the team in the division who was kind of doing that last year, who was the prime example of why you can't sustain, right? Miami's a freaking mess. And, if you're the Mets, and if I'm looking at that, I'm like, we can't become that. And that's what I think they need to be concerned about, because like the minute they start trending closer and closer to them in that sense, you either start trimming the fat or you just live with what you got.
Yeah, they have too many guys that, have such low averages. I know averages and everything, but 212, 211, 229, 185. Brett Beatty's 257. That's solid, but I think he can even give more.
He was at 333 for a while. Like that's the thing with him, and he's really cooled off.
And no Alvarez is a big blow, honestly, because
right.
The other guys, Nito, he's like, yeah, whatever. And I don't know. JD Martinez, 297, but it doesn't seem like he's been playing every day. And I don't know. It's just 38 games in, we'll give him more time, but yeah, they got to start performing better on offense for sure.
Yeah. Before we get to the injury updates for the Mets, speaking of Martinez, I need to preface it with this. I in no way believe JD Martinez is at fault for what happened with Wilson Contreras, but visually, I can't believe Contreras was that far up. I don't know. I was only a bullpen catcher. I handled some bullpen duty stuff back in my playing days, and like by that end, I was our emergency catcher. But I never actually played an inning behind the dish, so I can't really speak to it. I lean a little bit more on you because you were a pitcher, Kyle. But like,
I caught for a lot of years.
I mean, I've never seen anybody that up close to that at any professional level. It caught me off guard. And the fact there are people blaming JD Martinez is nuts to me. It wasn't even on the backswing he got him. It was on the front swing, on the actual swing. That's just nuts to me. Absolutely crazy.
You see a lot of catchers trying to reach instead of letting it come to you. When you're already set up close, you don't need to go out and get it. You have to let it come to you. And they try to go out and get it and then frame it. They don't and that's where he ran into trouble. He was already way too close up, and then he goes out and reaches for it.
Right.
So yeah, that was ugly. I mean, that's basically like you standing here with your arm out, and I'm going to take the bat and just drill you in the arm. I mean, the pain for that is just, I can't even imagine. No. And you could tell, I mean, he was just all over the ground. And sucks. He's going to be out a while too. And yeah, I mean, You just don't like seeing that kind of stuff.
No. Somebody said too that they kind of were tracking him because they noticed a difference positionally, which is obviously very accurate. But I guess since going over to the Cardinals, like they've been telling him to be more up, I guess, in that sense. Which the guy was a really good catcher in Chicago. I mean, there's a reason why you gave him the money you did to replace Molina. I would kind of probably let him do whatever he thought was best behind there. And now it's come back to unfortunately bite them a little bit in St. Louis. So, as you can probably tell people, I'm not a big St. Louis Cardinal guy in that sense. I do feel bad, though. I mean, they called it, what, like a fractured arm? But, like, it's more than likely, like, a fractured elbow, which, I mean...
And it was quick. They had the announcement before the game was over.
I frankly can't imagine... I mean, we've all banged our elbow on stuff, right? When we get, we hurt our funny bone. Like, that hurts enough in the moment as is. I can't imagine taking a blunt strike from a bat like that. And, I mean, you could tell right away, right? Obviously, like you said, Kyle, I mean, he was down.
Rolling around, holding his arm.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine. I think they tried to put a timeline on it, but I just feel like that's something you can't really put a timeline on to get back from either.
Yeah, I thought I said 6 to 8 weeks.
That seems quick.
That's just throwing arm. There's a lot of rehab involved with that. So.
That seems super quick. All right, speaking of some rehab, let's touch on some Mets players here. Tyler Megill struck out 7 in 4 scoreless innings for Syracuse earlier this week on Tuesday in his rehab assignment. I saw some highlights of the game, actually. He looked really good, which is, I think, a really good sign for the Mets. I know it's a major leaguer pitching to AAA, but still, I mean, you could tell, like, he was making his stuff work that day, to put it that way. 7 in 4 scoreless is not some easy feat. I think he walked only one guy, too, so, I mean, he was on it that day, at the very least. Speaking of Francisco Alvarez, update there. He got his stitches out of his left thumb. He's also, with that, has begun playing some catch this week, as well as swinging a bat one-handed. Although not which hand was listed, I'm implying that it is his right hand he's using. At least I would hope that's the implication. Bad news, however, on the Brooks Raley front, seeking a second opinion on his left elbow. Did a second MRI to take a look at the inflammation there. It went down, however, there is a frayed elbow ligament, whatever that kind of means. So he's seeking a second opinion on that. Sounds to me it's obviously not like a UCL tear, but something else in there, which doesn't sound like a quick timeline to come back from, admittedly. Drew Smith started a rehab assignment with Syracuse last night. I didn't see if he got in officially at the end of that, but he is with them to get his rehab. I'm assuming it's probably going to be similar, I guess, maybe in a way to the Nick Birdy stuff, where it's probably maybe 1 or 2, and that's about it, and he'll be set to rejoin the Mets. And then in the stuff of, well, you can't really make it up, but you can. Yohan Ramirez is back to being a Met. They claimed him off waivers from Baltimore. If you forgot, he was the pitcher who threw behind Rhys Hoskins opening week for the Mets. And in return, right-hander Max Kronick was designated for assignment.
I'll just say this. The Mets sure do love picking up garbage.
Oh.
Michael Tonkin, Yohan Ramirez, Phil Bickford. Should I go on? I mean, my God.
I mean, you can
Their bullpen has been
whatever.
weak for years. We've talked about this. Yeah, it's been decent this year, but they don't go out and get those top-end relievers, and I don't understand it. They address everything else but that, and they just continue to pick up these scrubs. Like, Ramirez will come into a game, he'll give up a run. His ERA is like 13 this year. Yeah. It's that bad. And I don't know. I don't get it.
Who was the last name they really got for the bullpen? I mean...
Yeah, who's like...
I would say you could make the case maybe for Brooks Raley, but even then...
They made like Jorge Lopez a big deal. Like
Jorge Lopez was a big deal maybe 2 years ago.
Yeah, I know, and his ERA has been terrible since. So,
yeah.
But you know what I mean? They don't go out and grab like a top, kind of like not like a superstar reliever, but like a top-end guy that's well-known. And I don't know why. They're okay with just throwing these random guys in.
Yeah.
Weird.
Don't know.
He knows Cohen has all this damn money, so I don't know what he's doing.
So much for spending.
Yeah.
So the Mets off today. They'll have 2 days off technically because of yesterday, but
Yep.
this was the scheduled off day. Anyway, travel day back to New York. 3 games against the Braves, and then a pretty unique 4-game. I know it's not a true 4-game series, but the way it looks, you would think it would be a 4-game series because they have 4 against the Phillies Monday through Thursday next week. It's 2 at home, though, against Philly, and then 2 on the road against Philly. So one of the more unique quirks we've seen in the schedule here recently. With that, it's an uphill battle the next 7 days for the Mets, to say it lightly.
It's not going to go well.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't feel confident. I don't know if they'll get swept by the Braves. It's very strange. The fact that they were able to shut out the Red Sox yesterday on the back of Chris Sale kind of is a little bit eye-popping for me personally speaking. But I think they get one from the Braves, and I don't know, Philly's coming off the back of losing to Toronto. But, I mean, that's obviously going to be a few days in the past. So I can only gauge off of what I've seen. I think I guess I'll do what I should have done with the Yankees here. I will take the higher option here of what is, I think, possible. I think the Mets go 3-4 within that stretch. Split with the Phillies and lose the series to Atlanta.
Yeah, I'll say 2-5. I think they're going to steal one against the Braves. I mean, remember, they already played them, and they played them well.
Yeah, that's true.
So
I'm not giving them enough credit in that series, to be fair.
What makes me mad about the Braves quickly, I know this is a different topic. How the heck is Marcell Ozuna lead the league in RBIs? The guy was like in legal trouble,
That's a fair
2 years
point.
ago?
Yeah.
He's got 40 hits on the year, too. Like, the guy doesn't even hit in the top,
He
5?
almost got DFA'd last year, too, right? Like, he was really close.
Yeah, he's like, I think 6th and 7th in the batting order. The guy's got 38 RBIs.
It's wild.
5 ahead of Juan Soto, who's second. Crazy.
Yeah. So you're thinking same, well, maybe not quite same along the lines as me, but in a similar
Just
vein?
one less win.
Gotcha. All right, let's jump over quick before we get out of here. The Red Wings and the S-Mets both on the road this week. Start with the Red Wings. They'll have a unique, not identity next week. They'll still be the Red Wings, but I like what they're doing. Next week is Lilac Fest week up in Rochester, Flower City. Debuted, rather announced and released some nice floral lilac-themed jerseys and hats for next week that they will be wearing all week against Buffalo when they're playing next week. I was able to get the hat last week. It's fantastic. I like how it's a little bit of a double thing where it's like you're honoring, obviously, the local heritage of Rochester with lilac and the Flower City. But also, if you know Washington, the parent club, their City Connect is the cherry blossom, famous in Washington, D.C. So nice little double connection there in a way. Have you seen the jerseys or hats by now, Kyle, by chance?
Yeah, I have. Been emailed a lot of stuff too from the PR department. Telling me there's like food stuff and half price tickets. There's like promotions every day. So yeah, I've kind of been reading a little bit of everything. But yeah, I mean, I think that's cool. Supporting the city. Following something they do every year. It's great to see.
It's awesome. And then for them as well, just a couple roster notes. Alex Call was optioned back to Rochester. Victor Robles wrapped up his rehab assignment with Rochester at the end of last week, so they switched spots on the roster. And then Matt Barnes was DFA'd by the Nationals and accepted his outright assignment to Rochester. So
More garbage.
jeez, man. Syracuse, Rochester, by the way, as I mentioned, tied 4th in the IL East right now, so hanging in contention. The S-Mets tied for 2nd in the IL East. They are in Lehigh Valley this week, have looked pretty good against the Iron Pigs. They got a new visitor coming into Syracuse next week, the Iowa Cubs. I think make their first ever trip to Syracuse.
Nice.
So
Need more of that.
Yeah, it's looking forward to that. I'm gonna try as long as the weather stays nice. Actually, I don't know if I will be able to next week now that I'm thinking about it.
So Scranton's the best
Like
team
to.
I'm seeing.
Scranton is rolling
How
in
are they
the
so
IL
good?
right. They are rolling in the International League right now, man.
Yeah, they have 24 wins. The next closest is 20.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. And the only reason why I say like Rochester and Syracuse are still kind of in is because I mean they're above 500, and we couldn't really say that last year too much in that sense. But they played each other last week. I went Friday night. It ended up being a Rochester blowout. We had Yolmer Sanchez on the mound for Syracuse, position player pitching alert that we don't see all that often anymore. But
Do you think
both teams have some really good stuff going on. Like I wouldn't be surprised. Like I mentioned, if everything kind of stays the same between the two, the way they do it now with the two halves each season, I wouldn't be surprised if either one of them were able to get into the playoff.
you think Yolmer Sanchez is happy that he was pitching in that game, or
He
just glad he's not on the White Sox anymore?
he admitted, well, he was with the Red Sox last year and also played, I think, with Worcester last year, but he did look a bit befuddled as to why he was on the mound in a 6-run ball game.
Yeah, I know. I read it. I couldn't believe it.
And then gave up a couple runs that weren't his. They were Shintaro Fujinami's. But
Why is he so bad? He has great stuff.
here's the thing with Fuji, man, and I realized that this is the first time I ever saw him in person was last Friday, man. He throws it hard, but that's about all he's got.
He has no control.
Yeah, it's bad. I think if he got that figured out, man, he'd be damn near untouchable, if I'm being honest. But, I mean, if you don't know where it's going half the time, then, I mean, trust me, Rochester, for the young hitters that they got, they're all professional hitters. They were more than willing to stand there and let him dictate what they did in that sense, right? So, tough spot, I would say, for him there. What are you going to do? It's baseball.
Yeah.
All right, so that will do it then for Concrete Jungle for this week. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. Live next week at 11 a.m. on Thursday. Yankees have an afternoon game that day. It's a de facto getaway day for me as well. So we'll do it at 11 a.m. next Thursday. So appreciate everybody for tuning in and listening. We'll be back at it again next week. Recap everything that was, news, notes, all the fun stuff. So like, share, subscribe. We'll talk with everybody next week.